President Hall, and I bring you greetings as we today reflect on the work of the Tennessee Innocence Project. We had expected that our speaker, Jessica Van Dyke, would be with us, but she's unable to make it to Memphis, so the clergy have pivoted to a time of preparing some remarks and the showing of a video. But again, welcome. For those of you joining us online, we're especially glad that you're able to tune in. Before we begin, let us pray. Gracious God, every day we are called to be mindful of the dignity of every human being. We're especially called to justice as it relates to those who go for trial and those, in many cases, unfortunately, are wrongfully accused. Thank you for initiatives such as the Tennessee Innocence Project that remind us of who we are called to be as we respect the dignity of others. Thank you for the gift of this day, your day, an opportunity for us to be in community with one another, to be the hands and feet of Christ in the world. Amen. So I provided a handout, and after the presentation, we'll post this handout online, but it's information from the Tennessee Innocence Project website. But just to give a bit of background about the mission, launched in February 2019 as the first full-time innocence organization in the state, the Tennessee Innocence Project represents men and women making claims of actual innocence. The project has three primary areas of focus: investigating and litigating wrongful conviction cases for those in Tennessee prisons to obtain exonerations, training law students and attorneys about how to litigate these cases and how to prevent future wrongful convictions, and effectuating changes that facilitate the discovery of wrongful convictions and remedies to the wrongfully convicted. That's a lot of work. That's important work. And as I offered in my opening prayer, respecting others and making sure that justice prevails is the work that we are called to be about. And I'm so glad that we have an opportunity to reflect on this today. The Reverend Jesse Abel had been in touch with our speaker, and so he'll come with a few remarks and then the showing of a video. And we'll have an opportunity to have some time for questions and answers. And the Reverend Laura Geddes, who's here in the congregation, she also is familiar with their work. So as we offer remarks, she may have a few things that she also would just say in support of this work. So again, I'll welcome Jesse now.
Good morning, and again, sorry we have to pivot, but these things do happen. We'll try to get Jessica back maybe at a different time to speak. I met her last June, and we've been dialoguing a bit in the months since then. So although the Innocence Project in Tennessee was incorporated and became its own standalone organization in 2019, Jessica Van Dyke had actually worked in this field long before that. The initiative actually started, as I understand it, with a group of law students and the help of some faculty at the University of Tennessee Law School. And they were going in pursuit of trying to help cases where they felt that justice was not served. They're very clear that they pursue actual cases of innocence. Like a lot of different states' innocence projects, they operate on a shoestring budget, and they get by with what they can from donations. Certainly would be more lucrative to be in other forms of law, but they feel very passionately about helping those who have been wrongfully convicted. And they investigate, they look into things, and then if they can find the grounds, then they appeal to exonerate someone. Jessica is a person who feels very strongly about this. That's why she's the executive director now, doing this important work. They're primarily based in Nashville, although over the past year, they're trying to branch out to Memphis to try to do some work, more work here as well. She was very proud of the fact that they had a success story just this past month. And I think the video may speak to a bit of that. but there was a case in the 80s involving child abuse where a man and a woman were convicted, and for over 20 years they have been behind bars. Recently, after the Tennessee Innocence Project did work with them, the prosecutor jointly filed a motion to exonerate this couple. Sadly, the man died in prison, and the wife has now been released. And in one really powerful quote from her, she said, "We've been maintaining our innocence for years, but no one would investigate." And that's where the Tennessee Innocence Project has stepped up to really help these people who were wrongfully accused to get their stories told. And hopefully we do get to hear from Jessica herself, but in lieu of that, Jeff, if you'll show the video.
Lost my family. I had one brother that grieved the death of it. He died, so haven't been able to visit their graves or nothing. He just left me with nobody.
Before the Tennessee Innocence Project launched, a lot of the innocence work was based out in East Tennessee. So by starting this organization as a statewide organization, it makes a big difference all across our state.
When they stepped in, they had the resources to get the expert witnesses, to have stuff tested that none of the other lawyers have even bothered to test. It was a relief.
I think innocence work is necessary in Tennessee because it's highly unlikely that there are only 21 or 22 people that have been wrongfully convicted in Tennessee. I don't think anyone should be in jail for something that they didn't do. Simple as that.
Well, I was in prison for over 27 years. My brothers, they got lawyers. I had 7 lawyers. And none of them seemed to have been able to do anything. They would just say, well, I talked to so-and-so. They said they would look into it. So it wasn't a whole lot, just a lot of money was wasted. It's hard when you don't have money and family support to help you.
When you have a trial, the jury has to find beyond a reasonable doubt that you are guilty. Once the jury makes that finding, it's almost, the burden changes. At that point, you almost have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you're not guilty. And it almost gets to the point of beyond all doubt.
You have to start and prepare for a new trial. You have to cross-examine witnesses. You have to subpoena individuals.
And these are cases that require a ton of time, a significant amount of resources, and a lot of energy.
Ever since 2013, I've been trying to get myself exonerated. I wrote to courts, lawyers, organizations, maybe 20 or 30 organizations that help innocent people, but this is the only one that offered to help me. It took a lot off my mind. It gave me hope, knowing that someone would hear me and help me, because they show that they care and they're willing to help me.
The Tennessee Innocence Project is important for Tennessee because before they were here, we had limited resources to devote to innocence work. In the last 2 years since they've been on the ground, they have moved this conversation forward leaps and bounds. And without them, no one would be talking about it at the level that it is now.
Me holding on to hope that someone would actually believe me one day has allowed me to keep my sanity. Me holding on to hope has kept me grounded. And me holding on to hope, will eventually help me to gain my freedom.
If you're innocent, don't give up. If they can help you, they'll let you know. Don't give up. Just don't give up.
Jeff, thank you for sharing the video with us. Very, very inviting, a lot of information, and this all may be new to many of you. I don't know as much about the project, and I've learned more in the last few weeks from reading, had heard various things about it, and have some friends who in other cities in Tennessee have been involved with it. But I'd be curious who here is familiar with the project, and any comments you have about it. If this is new to you, this may be completely new, or you may have some insight. Any of you who are here in the room.
I'm assuming this is affiliated with a national organization that was featured in the book Just Mercy, which then turned into a movie.
So connected to the Equal Justice Initiative in some way, that would be, the answer to that is yes, it is connected to the work of the Equal Justice Initiative. So, great question, thank you. Others? Yes, and we have a microphone coming your way.
Ready? Okay, great. Good morning, and thank you for the quick pivot.
You're welcome.
I'm interested to hear if we know whether this organization partners with local organizations like Just City, or if there's any overlap there or not. They're very distinct and separate.
I'll call on, I had mentioned in my introduction, the Reverend Laura Geddes, who's our associate for community engagement, and she has some familiarity with the Tennessee Innocence Project, and we'll ask her to come forth and also answer some questions.
Now, don't hold me as an expert, but I'd be happy to try and answer as much as I can. Yes, the answer to your question, Andy, is yes. The question being connections to TIP, the Tennessee Innocence Project, with Just City. And the answer is yes, with Josh Spickler and that good group there around all the good work that they are doing with the Shelby County and beyond justice system. The TIP, Tennessee Innocence Project, is trying to get, as we may have mentioned, base here in Memphis. They have been based and are based in Nashville, but they're working on getting a board as well that has representatives from Nashville, as well as members and representatives from Memphis and Shelby County. And I believe some of the representation may also be coming from Just City. That's the hope. I've begun conversations with the group to explore not only a site and center and a physical place for them to be, but our bishop wonderfully wants us as an Episcopal diocese to have connections in part to this. So I've begun, in my own way, some conversations about what representation looks like, what they need in terms of support, resources, and awareness. So some of the conversation we're having today is to deepen that, begin that, explore that, and see, especially with the Shelby County justice system, how we can be a part with Nashville, because there is deep overlap and some real need that we think would even strengthen the statewide experience that way.
Thank you, Laura. Other questions? For those of you where this is completely new, there are no wrong questions. Anything that comes to mind as you've just heard an introduction, or as you have watched the video that you may have as you've just taken this on?
I'm usually loud enough without the mic. I don't have a question, but I have a comment based on one of the comments the lady in our video made. I saw a documentary the other night about a very wealthy, smart white man in North Carolina who, over the course of years with teams and teams of lawyers, depleted everything he had. And in the documentary, he made the comment, justice is primarily for the rich. And when you think about it, that had never occurred to me to think of it that way before. But with her comment about not having lawyers who had the background or the skill or even the finances to dig deep into, multiple re-interviews or what have you. So in some ways, the Innocence Project follows a flaw in the overall system, in my opinion, but one that is desperately needed to promote justice.
Sandra, thank you for that comment. One of the observations that I have and continue to learn, and I know this from seeing things in various ways, is that there's definitely a case where financial resources, there's a theme here, right? Financial resources, the lack of financial resources can keep someone in prison until death. That's a sobering reality. And so when you have initiatives such as the Tennessee Innocence Project that are mindful of a majority of persons who are convicted are without the resources to get what they need to make sure that they don't remain a convict. And that is very sobering, but I appreciate what Sandra shared, is that there is a correlation between money, between financial resources and access to justice. And that is why some of the programs that we see, including the work of Just City here, if you've read the book Just Mercy and seen the movie Just Mercy, all of these things come up a lot throughout there. So there is a correlation. Thank you. Other comments? These are great questions around a very important topic. I might come to this side of the room in just a minute, so just be ready, Lillian.
Forewarned. So clearly, just as you mentioned, financial resources are paramount. I'd be interested to hear, maybe Laura, you can speak to this, at this stage of the game, as exciting as it is, that to maybe trying to locate here more permanently, what things can we do to help support that, besides potentially financial? Are there any, what does the organization need at this point from a support perspective to help with that initiative?
I'm going to have Laura come back up where she can be seen by those of you online.
I'm okay just being a voice, a floating voice. But okay. The question, if you heard it, was what can we do right now in this moment as we're building on what is wanting to be created and such? And I think that's a great question, and I bet Jessica has a lot of thoughts about that. So I think that's another reason why we need her and want her to come. But I think, if y'all were asking me that question, and I were to take a moment to think about it, I would think about the power and the privilege and the connections and the resources that we have, and what Sandra shared around resources and financial, and think about already what we have as assets and ways in which we can help raise and elevate voices that are marginalized, and how we do that and how we share our voices so that those in power hear voices that haven't been heard, especially the ones that have been incarcerated. Those are especially squelched and pushed. So what can we do? Who can we talk to? We have a lot of connections, I think with the judicial system here and those that are working in the Shelby County justice system and beyond. We also have an opportunity to vote coming up, and that's huge. So being informed about who we are electing, connecting, here it is, plug for Micah, and knowing about our candidates, their platforms, what they've been standing for, the decisions they've made in the past, and understanding what we want to see, and then reflecting that as we vote, I think is huge and is not to be diminished either, because that is an opportunity and a way in which we really do and can make change. So those are some first thoughts. But let's ask Jessica, because she's going to know too.
Thank you, Laura. So this side of the room, any questions that you bring or might have about our topic. And we plan to have a shorter conversation today because we have pivoted to this, but wanted to give people an opportunity to ask any questions. And as mentioned, Jessica Van Dyke of Tennessee Innocence Project, we're finding a way to welcome her back to us so that she can engage us even more. I may ask Jesse to come up and, yep, we do have one question in the back and a microphone is coming your way.
It's not amazingly insightful, but how many people are we talking about that are maintaining their innocence that have been convicted? I know it's some sort of like national statistics, but does anybody have any for Tennessee and Shelby County?
So the number of people, do we have a sense of that? And I, again, haven't just provided some resources here, but I'll look under, if it's from their website, and I'll just share this information. Collectively, more than 23,000 years have been lost in prison by innocent men and women, but here it mentions more than 2,600 people have been exonerated across the United States. So that's just mentioning those who've been exonerated. So I don't know what the number is, what percentage of that is. So it is a very important question, how many people, and even that is a high number, but yet probably still a low number, right? So yeah. Well, friends, thank you. I'll ask Jesse Abel to come up and offer any closing remarks and a closing prayer, and thank you again for joining us.
Well, I'll just say, I'll second what Laura said, which were great suggestions about what we can do here and now to get involved. I don't think it's just a coincidence that Jessica is a fellow child of God and comes from a similar faith tradition to ours and has always been instilled with, this sense of justice is important in our lives. The Tennessee Innocence Project is trying to branch out here. They haven't done as much work because they've been the other side of the state, and that means that we probably have only guesstimates of what the situation is like here in Shelby County. If we had more resources and more time put in, we would see more of the scope of the situation. Definitely check out the Tennessee Innocence Project's website. There's lots of information on there. You can see stories, you can find out ways to get involved and to help. Certainly if you're moved to make a donation, they could do that. They do have limited resources, so it's like a handful of people who actually work and get a stipend for doing the work, and that means that they have to be sort of picky with what choices they pursue. And there are even more out there that probably could really use investigation, but they're limited in what the hours that they have collectively to devote. So definitely it's good work. I encourage you to learn more. Shall we pray? Oh, gracious God, we know that you love all of us and that you have a special concern for those who are downtrodden, those who are outcast, and those who are forgotten. Give us your love of justice and your sense of passion and zeal to help all of your children around us in the world. Bless the work of the Tennessee Innocence Project and help us to pursue justice in our own backyards. Be with us now in the name of your beloved.